Welcome to today's episode of Behind the Signs. I am Joe Aranella, the co-host, along with my daughter.
Is that my cue? I'm Liz Aranella Toynes, the other co-host.
Yes, owner of a very, very successful sign company, I might add. I'm very proud of you. Have you guys had a great year?
We've had a year. And we're still alive.
Anyway, I am super excited about today's episode, not just because it's the last episode of the year, but this person that we're going to interview today brings a tremendous amount of wisdom with him. And so I think it's going to be a super helpful podcast interview today.
I also think it's just a topic that I'm obviously very passionate about. You've already listened to the first topic, which was us just talking about it, design. And the value of design in the sign industry. But today we're talking with Rick Chavez, who's been in the industry for over 30 years. He's the principal and owner at Kingpin Creative. And he's just like a wealth of knowledge. He has seen this industry from hand drawings all the way through to now AI. So we have gone through the whole gamut with him. And I think it's just a really great episode.
I do too. I'm pretty excited about it. I feel like I learned a few things too. He actually, if you're in Sign Tracker, not that this is commercial for that, but we'll talk about our sponsors in a second. But if you are in Sign Tracker and you start a new job and you go to Sign Designs, there is a giant library of technical drawings there. All Rick. I mean, they're really phenomenal. So he really
a wealth. He's a wealth of knowledge for this industry, and I think that this is probably one of, in my opinion, the most important topics of our podcast. And
he's my absolute favorite sign designer. Is your husband most weeks? Today, though, I'm going to say Rick is. I'm going to elevate him to my favorite sign designer today. So, and Rick's also a Renaissance guy too. I don't know if he's going to talk about this on the podcast, but he's a DJ on the side. He's just like a cool dude.
He's just cool. And he's one of those cools that you're never going to be that cool, Yeah. And that's okay.
Yeah. It's a lifetime of cool. I'm never going to be that cool, but anyway.
No, I'm not either.
Well, before we get started, we always like to thank our sponsors. Of course, Inktavo has been our primary sponsor this whole past year. They've been very supportive of the Behind the Signs community and podcast. And if you're not familiar with Inktavo, please go to inktavo.com and learn about all the different tools that they provide for the sign and print and garment industry. Recently, I don't know if you heard the big news on the streets, but we, because I'm part of Inktavo, just merged with OMG, which I know in the sign world that's not as big as it is in the garment and promotional product world, but OMG is Order My Gear, massive company, and Inktavo are now one company, so pretty excited about that. But you can learn a lot about OMG, Printavo, Inksoft, Graphics Flow, and of course, our favorite, Sign Tracker. And you can also go to sign-tracker.com to learn about Sign Tracker. And would like to thank, of course, Liz, I'll let you take up the next.
Our friends at Sign Builder Illustrated.
They're the best.
They are. And if you haven't already, check out our column in the magazine. It comes out every month. It's called Behind the Signs. Fancy that. Anyway, our column usually talks a little bit more in depth about the same topics we're talking about here. So if you haven't noticed, we have an article, a banter, and an interview for every topic, just so we can get a lot of different sides of it for you guys and really dive deep. So check them out. I'm doing it again. Their website is
signshop.com. How do you forget that every month?
It's because of ISA.
Because signs.org.
Yeah, because signs.org. But speaking of ISA, if you don't
let's give them a plug. They're the best.
Yeah, we love them. We're influencers for them this year at the ISA Expo in Orlando. So if you don't already have your ticket to go, we hope you get it. It's such a valuable conference. I would say the most valuable in the industry. For signs. If you go to one a year, you'll get everything. You'll get a lot of what's offered at Graphics Pro, but then, right? But you'll get a lot of the same materiality and vendors that you'll see at Graphics Pro that also are vendors at ISA Sign Expo. So if you're only going to go to one, I would say this is the most valuable. You get a little bit more niche at Graphics Pro than you do at.
You get times 1,000 more You get like 1,000x more things to look at ISA. I mean, it's one of the biggest shows in the world.
No,
So,
I know it's huge. That's what I'm saying. It encompasses all of it.
Thanks so much. And if you wouldn't mind, when you watch this podcast on YouTube, please subscribe and like and comment and share. And the same with the Facebook community too, because it helps us to grow and to reach more signed people and build a stronger community that can be supportive. So anyway, thank you guys so much. And we'll see you with Rick.
Yeah, see you there. Okay, now let's talk about the sign industry.
I will talk about design, which, Rick, we're obviously super psyched to have you here today, and Liz will introduce you in a little bit. But the thing about design in the sign industry, I feel like it's the missing idea of design first, and so that's pretty much what I'd like to talk to you about today, and seeing how we can change the minds of our listeners about approaching design in the sign industry. So
just want to remind everyone that it was not that long ago that Joe was not a believer.
I mean, it's been a while now. Come on.
It's been a while. It's been almost 10 years.
And I mostly think about it from a crying standpoint, because I think about I want to say hundreds of thousands of dollars I left on the table because I thought sign shops should design for free, which was dumb.
So Rick, we have you here. That's so exciting. You have been, working in graphic design and branding and environmental design for over 30 years. So how did you end up in the sign industry? What was kind of your path to graphic design and then design in the sign industry?
So I live in Southern California. I was raised in La Mirada. So right down the street was Knott's Berry Farm, Cars to the Stars, Japanese. This is Japanese park that they had over the Deer Park, and Disneyland. So theme park work was all over the place. And there was a sign painter in my church that, had saw me doodling all over my magazines and stuff like that. And so he was like, hey, do you want to learn how to, do this hand letter and stuff like that? So, and he had a cute daughter, and I thought I would impress her with my skills. And he taught me how to hand letter. And taught me, like the fundamentals of graphic design and some of the, the analog skills. This is in 1978, something like that. So, come to find out that I was good at the mechanical part, but she wasn't impressed. But he ended up being a sign painter at Knott's Berry Farm. He designed the logo. He did other things that I would help out with, and so just kind of like my first mentor that just kind of, like my parents were always kind of pushing me to do something more because with creative stuff, because I was always drawing, I was always doodling, I was always doing something. And at that time at school, I was making little party flyers. Back then in the day, they'd have these 25 kegger parties, and I would draw the little flyer for it, and we'd go make copies of it and stuff like that. So at the end of it, like the time I was 18, I had a copy machine in my room. I had every tool that you could possibly do to make things like that. And it was just fun. I just loved doing it. And, but my dad was in construction. And so there was always a pull because graphic designers in 1980 didn't get paid a lot, in the construction, $20 an hour, in 1980, that's a lot of money. So I was always still doing graphics while I was in that business, but so I never stopped, doing it. And I started collecting books and started getting better and better. And I would, started doing posters for punk venues and stuff like that. And then I jumped into sportswear. So a lot of surf and sport wear companies around here as well. So, yeah. So I got to do that for a while as well. It's again, just fun and, and made a little bit of money here and there doing it. But I did go to school for a while, and I was way too young, did not like to be told what to do. It was just the worst attitude in the world. And this is Art Center I went to. And so I just bowed out. I just had to quit because I was wasting my parents' money, And I tried it again in the mid 80s, and same thing. It was just couldn't, the structure of it, just, yeah. And I was probably way ahead of that anyways at that time, but yeah. So, but I wish I had a degree, but I don't. But yeah.
Tell us about, because I mean, obviously, education or not, you have become a master at your craft, and now you have Kingpin Creative. Tell us a little bit about your company and the types of work that you really specialize in. And
I never expected to go out on my own. I was working for a company in Pasadena that was pretty well known, Hunt Design. My wife got sick, and I had 4 boys from a previous marriage that had to be taken care of. So I went on family leave, which ended up being permanent. And so I was just forced to start a business that I just did not want to do. I was, just busy taking care of them, but I had to work, I had to make money. And I was, once my obligation of taking care of my wife was gone, then I just really had to step up and do it. And so I just started getting clients from other designers. A lot of my designer friends we've always helped each other out. And the biggest thing was, getting other designers and being friends with them and helping get them jobs, and then they get you jobs. So I just started collecting clients from there and doing design work. And it started out with a lot of apartment design. And then Kingpin Creative came from the love of mid-century design that I like. And me and my friends used to go bowling all the time, and I'm a horrible bowler, but it was like the aesthetic of it I loved. So that's how that was created. But then slowly I just started, getting more clients in the restaurant business. And but prior to the work of that, I was doing theme park work. I was doing city wayfinding projects, massive airport jobs, worked at Disney stuff, Warner Brothers. Like I said, my specialty would be probably, would love to say it's theme park work and story driven design. And I've done a lot of it, but on my own, it's kind of difficult to do it by yourself. So what I learned is I've allowed my clients to kind of dictate where my business goes and where the needs go. And so lately it's been a lot of permit packages and stuff. It's just not all that creative, but it's a needed thing. And I don't have to wait for work. Work just keeps pouring in because a lot of designers can't do it. So yeah, but I also get to do fun stuff once in a while. So, and I fix a lot of projects that other designers do. So, there's a lot of, even as much as I believe design is the first part that we have to really worry about. There's a lot of design that gives us designers a bad name. So, as part of my job is to fix those things and kind of relate to my clients, design shops or the contractors or whatever, how that process works and how we could fix it without too much trouble,
Rick, I know we've talked about this and you've talked with Russell about this. We're fairly similar in what we do. We're a design studio that focuses on environmental design and signage packages. We also do branding and that. And I know you do too. You have a lot of experience in that. Something that we've, what we started when we started 10 years ago, what we wanted to do with our business was show how design is a valuable asset in this industry. And it's not just something you should give away. It's becoming more of a standard, which is nice. What do you think sign shops really misunderstand most about the value of design?
I think that most owners will look at design and say, I wouldn't pay that. So they're a little prejudiced already. Like, why would they pay for that if I wouldn't do it? And that's not. And then they just decide to treat it as a loss leader. I'm going to do this, and the problem is they don't understand is that most people can print, most people can fabricate, most people can install pretty much the same way. I mean, you have to be pretty bad at it to be pretty noticeable, but we have a lot of skilled labor that's able to do all those things. But the only thing that differentiates us from another shop is design. And if all designers were great, we maybe that would be an issue, but that's not the case. Most sign shops cannot design because there's not a value put on it, or they don't feel the need to pay someone to do that. And there's a couple of ways around that for them. They can continue to doing what they're doing, but add another portion to that. And part of the way I try to help other sign shops when they come to me is help them and guide them to find solutions for them so that they can up their design game when they need to. Because, a lot of sign shops are replicators, so maybe they don't need a skilled designer. They just need a skilled replicator. But when it comes down to, hey, you want to do something really cool, then you're going to need someone that has those skills. So, and it is, they need someone that knows branding. If they're going to do a car wrap, they're going to need someone that knows how to deal with, graphics, color, scale, proportion, all these different things instead of just plastering on the side of a vehicle or a building. Where a lot of sign shops don't realize that almost every sign has a code attached to it. So, there's that other thing too. So that's where a designer who has knowledge could get them to that point.
Yeah, no, all those things are true. It kind of leads us into the next question as far as design, being the foundation of all successful sign projects, unless it's like just a square box going on a wall, obviously. But I think the big thing that a lot of sign shop owners miss is the resistance to price that you will lessen that with quality design because people are going to feel so excited about whatever, So what do you think about that?
So I've seen people start sign shops where they take other people's work and put it on their website, or they'll refer to their Pinterest page and say, this is this type of work that we want to do, which is a little cheating, and whatever like that. But what they're doing is they're putting the cart before the horse. They need to design something of their own, even if it's not a real job, and start practicing and practicing. And it does take a while to get that. It does take a while to learn the aesthetics of that. But while they're doing that, they can hire someone, even temporarily, just to see how that process is done, just to start them out. And if it's not their bag of tea and they want to be replicators, that's fine because we need replicators. But, what I find, though, is that they see that it might be easy. This is before AI. They see it might be easy and they try it and they fail and then they go out of business. And if you're pumping 50 grand, 100 grand into equipment, but you can't do the basic task of design, then you're starting out, you started out wrong. You could have if you thought about it a year before, start designing now, before you get your equipment, or find someone that that can help you. Take classes, take a master class, or go to any of the online classes to learn how to do it. Doesn't mean that you're going to be able to do it, but, it takes a long time to learn how to do it. I don't know if I'm talented. I think I'm more skilled. And after a while, I just got better and better at it. Because if I look at a design I did in 1978, I can't believe I did that. Pretty bad, But, you get better in time and the practice of it all the time. So they really need to start thinking that we are like these little design firms. Yeah. And most people don't. And I've said this before, like at least 20 years online, no one knows how to design shop for design. They'll go to a quick print place, or they'll go to a sign shop and say, I need a logo. That's not how you get a logo. Yeah. But they don't know that. And, sure enough, we'll do a logo for you. But is it going to be the logo that they need? This is why I encourage sign shops to maybe have someone on the side, and they can do this at any time that they're open, is that they could call up this other designer that can do that and help them, with that process, and then go back to the replicating that they need. But have someone at least in your pocket that can help you with that. But there's also issues because a lot of owners aren't designers. A lot of owners get into this because I met way too many that said, well, they charged me $100 for a banner. I thought that was too much. So I started a sign shop, it looked easy. Yeah. Installers will do that. And they're great installers, but again, they have a hard time jumping into that part of it,
And I don't know about you, but we get a lot too is a company that'll come to us and say, oh, I need a sign. And we're like, great. Where's your brand package? Like, we need your your brand toolkit, and then we can kind of start developing assets from there. And they're like, no, I don't have a logo. And I'm like, no, okay. You need branding then. Like, that's not a sign. You have to start from the beginning. And those are two different things. A lot of people, even sign companies, will, like you said, they'll take that and they'll say, oh, well, I can make you a logo. And it's like, no, because that's only one piece of a brand kit, but also it needs to be used and scalable on so many different assets. And if you don't understand that, and you don't understand all the parts and pieces that need to go into it and what all it's going to be used for, then you're really not setting that company up for success.
Yeah, and if you're approaching projects by just throwing a price out, there's no real loyalty built between the customer and the company, right? Where design, I think, creates this buy-in that you're a brand ambassador almost for that particular customer, and they're going to be less price sensitive around you. Not that you shouldn't be fair in your pricing, but and the same, I feel exactly the same way you do too. I mean, if I was to talk to a young person that's wanting to get into the sign industry right now, hey, I just want to start my own sign shop. It looks like a really cool industry. I would 100% tell them to invest everything you possibly can into the design and systems, right? Project management systems and design up front before you even think about buying that first printer. Because there are so many wholesale companies out there, like even channel letters, think about it. I mean, they just mass produce channel letters, or Gemini that mass produces all those custom letters and all this. There's places you can go and get the product that will build it in the beginning 10 times better than you will. And the quality will be 10 times better than what you can do, just starting out. You're much better off taking all of your money and skills and get yourself organized, and either get a design partner, subcontract partner, or your first hire as a designer.
And something you said sticks out, and that's that, customers won't be as price sensitive around you if you've developed this relationship. And that is one way to look at it. The other way of looking at it is you're getting paid for the work you've already done. So even if the company wants to go and shop that design around, which a lot of them do, right? That sometimes it's a standard, especially in construction, they have to get multiple bids. Well, you've already gotten paid for the time that you've spent on that project. So you're not depending on them. You don't have to race to the bottom with your prices for fabrication and installation, because you've already been paid for the work that you've completed.
But even companies that require multiple bids for projects like that, like a big ADA,
a lot of times they're
going to come back to, because they want to work with you. You understand every bit of the nuances of color and size and all the stuff. So even if in fabrication, and even if they came back to you and said, hey, look, we got 3 bids, you were in the middle, can you adjust your fabrication price a little bit? Okay, sure. We want the work, we'll take it, but at least you're not giving design away. You've been paid for that.
I don't adjust my pricing because I give the best price I can up front. But I will remove scope or value engineer. And I think that those are absolutely ways that you can adjust your pricing. But I think that this might just be this is how we run it. Adjusting your pricing shows that you've put erroneous markup on your product. And that's not the case. There are markups on your product, but that's because your business needs to be able to take on the liability of fabrication and installation. So if something goes wrong and you're going to be the one holding the bag, trying to replace the things that are going wrong. And sometimes your fabrication partner might replace that for you, but sometimes they won't. And you have to be able to have a little bit of padding in there in order to do that. Plus you have to pay your employees. So I don't just adjust pricing, but I will value engineer something. And I think that that's a way to do it. Now we obviously have very strong opinions about design, but I do want to ask you, what would you say to a shop owner who sees design as an expense rather than an investment or an asset?
You're stuck in old school thinking. Trying to stop that train and the mentality and that is eating into your profits. You're using somebody else's idea to make a decision that you may not be qualified to do. And I get that might be painful to hear, but you're trying to make money. You're trying to stay afloat. You're trying to pay your employees. You're trying to justify the designer in the first place, And so, if someone's coming in, I always say, this is another thing I say all the time. If someone comes in with a beat up, Chevy Vega, it's all rusty and stuff like that. I'll give them a break. I might even do it for free. But when someone drives up in $100,000 truck with $100,000 worth of equipment and $1 million yard, they can afford the cost of the thoughtful branding. They can afford the cost of thoughtful design, and those things have worth and they have benefit to them. A well-designed, a well-fabricated sign will keep the sign up, and not fall off the building, but the branding will always be working for them. So you really want to, kind of just tell them that, this part here represents who you are. And do you want that to be, rushed through and not well thought out? Because, when we charge, we're going to do all these different processes to make sure that it's successful for you. It's just one part of it. But then also you might be dealing with a client that doesn't care, that has bad taste, and sometimes you just have to get, that doesn't go in your portfolio. But
something that we've heard is, oh, well, if we charge for design, they're just going to go down the street and go to the company that doesn't. And it's like, if we all charge for design, that would no longer be the option, right? And if you're not equipped to charge for design because you don't have designers on staff, then you shouldn't offer that as a service, in my opinion.
This is where maybe the sneaky way is like, oh yeah, we'll have them design it for free and then bring it back and I'll bid on it. If you wanted to be nasty. But I mean, since I only design, I don't have that option yet. I'm going to do it for free. So, I'm going to charge you for it. Now, I do charge more than the average sign designer, I guess. And that's how come I don't really post a lot of my, I don't throw out my name in the hat, because most of the people I'm competing with are at half my price or even a third of it. And so I can't compete with that. Also, they're making a lot more money because they might be living in a third world country that, $25 an hour is like making $150 an hour. And I don't complain about that, because I would be doing the same thing, but what I offer though is a different take on it. And, I would hope that my skills after a few years, rise above that. But at the same time, I have the same competition, and I don't mind it. I don't mind saying, oh, I know this other person that might be able to do that for you, but I can't.
Yeah. And there's a big difference of if you used an overseas designer to do a sketch or a logo or something, if that's, you had a tight budget and that's what you want to do, that's fine. But that's not signage, right? That's not designing and to the brand, to the sign, to what code regulations are where you live or in the United States. And so it's a lot more complicated than just getting a sketch on a piece of paper. That's for sure.
I've met a few though that do know the subtleties of code stuff, and yeah, so they do an okay job of doing that. But what they miss though is that there's an American vernacular to design compared to, like, I couldn't do a good logo, I don't think, in Japan or in the Philippines or stuff like that, because I don't know that visual language, and it goes the same way, and I know that I've seen a lot of work that I could tell it was done by, someone overseas that has that particular style, and, and it looks good, but is it going to work for your brand?
That's the kicker, right? Like when you're hiring a designer to develop your brand, and then the assets that you would use for your brand, i.e. signage. When someone comes to our company and picks us, typically they're seeking out a partner. Like they want someone that's going to work through the creative process with them and not just give them something. And I'd imagine the same goes for you. People know your expertise and they know what they're calling you for specifically.
Yeah. And I am developing relationships like some of my clients I've had since I started on my own, like 2004. It's 21 years I've had one partner with, and we've gone through some rough times together, and we've gone through, there's some frustrating times. Sometimes I'll get art directed, and I'll be, art directed me, but it's okay. It's part of the process of collaborating and working with people and remaining friends and remaining business partners as well, and making sure that they are. My main job is making sure they make money, because if they make money, then they keep me. So.
Speaking of collaboration, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, Liz, just for the sake of time here. But when you're collaborating, I mean, obviously, you're working at your own firm, but then you have customers that you're collaborating with, what they want. We've talked a lot about that in their brand and helping them interpret what they need. But then also, how about the other side of the house? Like when you're designing a sign package, how do you work with, or how do you suggest sign shops work with the installer that's doing the technical survey, the salesperson that's just super excited about making the deal and maybe cuts a few little details out that they should? And like, how do you work with all that?
Again, it's coming up with a processes involving, like with surveys and stuff like that, because I get the worst surveys on the planet sometimes, and or they'll hire out through and find somebody else to survey it for them, and they don't follow my instructions, and then I have to have them go out again, and especially when I do signage all over the country, so it's not like I can go out there and go measure it. I used to do that. I used to fly out to the East Coast all the time, and I realized this just wasn't. And then I had to go back and design it. So coming up with processes and enforcing it amongst the surveyors first, and just really pushing it and saying, this is what we require of you, but you're also getting paid to do that. But there's a lot of times where they simply, like, their experience gets in the way, and that we always have to be careful of is experience. And another thing I say online is, I maybe have been doing this for 40 years or something like that, but in reality, I've been doing it for 5 years, and I've just done it over and over again 10 times. It's not, we don't learn all that much. We just only in little tidbits. So sometimes you have to work with that thinking from the owner of the sign shop all the way down to the person doing the survey. I do this because I need to make sure that this is correct, because I can't go out there and measure it again. If it takes you 5 minutes longer, what's the big deal?
This comes up in the behind the signs community a lot. I know it's a basic question, but what do you think are the best design tools for sign shops?
I guess it's the ability to graphically show emotion in a way. Yes, you're trying to get someone to buy. You're trying to design something for somebody to buy their product, to use their service, to do anything to use their service, and then we design a system around it. But what we need to do is we need to learn how to develop the story. We need to develop emotion. We need to develop something that will start a brand so that someone will be loyal to it. That's our job. Now, we may not be able to pull that off. It's everybody else's job to build it. It's everybody else's job to print it. But as a designer, we have to invoke some level of emotion and attach it to it. So that way, they can feel it, and then their clients feel it. The software means nothing if you can't evoke emotion.
Absolutely. So then let's kind of shift this conversation to the designer, right? Instead of what the sign shop should expect. And so if you're looking at young designers entering the sign world specifically, what skills matter most? Obviously, evoking emotion and being able to tell a story and solve a problem is what you just said. But I'm sure there are other skills that do matter. And then also, what common mistakes do you see either young designers or seasoned designers make when transitioning into signage?
I think for the young people, the biggest thing is learning how to design and scale. It's the biggest obstacle I've seen above all. And then I think that they have to understand some of the old school thinking behind it. And I think young designers should be allowed to explore their space a little more while the sign shop teaches them how to design a sign, because there's so many problems there's so many codes involved. There's so many restrictions because of size of materials and stuff like that. But I always find that if we allow our young designers to explore the space a little bit and let somebody else, like the production designer, say, hey, you can't do that, it allows them to still design something really cool. Because I've seen a lot of print designers that are really, really good and that would make great sign designers. It's just that, it takes a while to learn how to do the part. Allow them to have that. And then we're gonna mess them up with code restrictions and limits and stuff like that. Allow them to have that time to have fun, and then realize that when they get to be my age, I can't do that because it won't fit, the 8-foot one won't fit the material, and blah blah blah. It's like, yeah. And what's interesting is that what young designers need to know is that you get to be an old designer later. So if you learn how to use materials, if you learn how to understand codes, if you learn how to make a permit package, or you learn how to do mechanical drawings, years later, you'll still have a job. But I've worked for companies where designers are let go and they only learn so much. They just, I'm not going to go past that they're unemployable. And actually companies will restrict them. And I say that even on your own, and it's too bad there's not a book that tells you how to design signs. There was a book that was promising, but it just didn't fulfill the need of what they really needed to learn because of the way it was worded. And it was too bad because I was hoping he'd rewrite it or something like that. And I was thinking about doing it, but he didn't sell that many, so I don't know if it's worth it. But,
right.
But it was the first attempt at showing designers why, how process and what they need to do. And I think that is really required for a young site designer and even an older designer that they learn the processes of doing that. Because in reality, you're in construction. Yeah, I mean, it's nice to do print stuff and it's nice to do that all day long, or website stuff and whatever like that. But the second you jump into this, you're dealing with all kinds of weird codes and requirements and stuff that you don't even, when you have to deal with ANSI and OSHA.
That's something that we always say too for our designers. They've been doing it for a while now, but we try to keep them out. Like they know requirements, they understand code, they know how to design to all that. But sometimes we have to break that on them too. Like, hey, stop thinking that way. We want you to blue sky this. And then, a lot of what I do is I'll come in and be like, okay, well, this is what code says. So we're going to, and then Russell too, that's our job as the leaders to say, this is what we need to adjust, but it's their job as the creatives to be creative and really just go with it. And even though they do understand what it takes to build a sign. So, some of the simpler problems that you would come across from someone with no sign experience, i.e. a floating sign that's illuminated on all sides and there's no wires, that kind of thing. And the electrical just comes out of the air. That kind of thing isn't an issue for us, but, we still don't want to restrict that creative process by saying, only think about how you know how to make signs. Because for us, it's like, we're going to figure it out. We're going to find a way to make it. We want you to just go with it.
And I think too, like, at our shop, we were a bigger shop. So we always considered ourselves, I would always say to people, I think we're a construction company first and then a sign company second. But the one thing the benefit of having a bigger shop for the designers anyway, is they did spend a lot of time out watching processes, how letters are nested on a substrate, and going out to the field and seeing how things technically are installed and thinking about engineering and placement and all that stuff. So it does help. But again, that I think that has a lot to do with the owners putting a value on design, because if that person, you might think about that person in the shop watching these things being done and think, oh man, I'm not getting paid while they should be in there designing. But ultimately they're going to hit the ceiling if they don't learn all these different things.
They're shooting themselves in the foot if they don't allow the designer or tell the designer, go on the install, go out in the shop, talk to these guys about how you're going to make this section drawing or whatever like that, because that's how they learn. That's how they grow. And that's how the company gets more efficient. It's all about efficiency anyways. It's like, you're allowing them to be more efficient at this one point where they don't have to go out there anymore. But for a while, they're going to have to do it. But they're also learning, the skills from the ground up. Like I installed before I designed, and I had to fabricate stuff and do stuff before I got to design some stuff, So yeah, I can do the drawing without hardly thinking now because I've done it, but I also went out to the sign shop and talked to these guys, and we used to have lunch together just to, because we're part of the team, part of of that whole process. Again, it's like, and I always say, like anybody can install, and a lot of people can do the fabrication, and so you're going out there and using that knowledge and applying it to the design part and you allow them to do that.
And I think it's a mindset change, right? If design is, I mean, obviously making profit and keeping the doors open, but I mean, if design has to be at the forefront of the beginning of everything.
Yeah.
We get a lot of questions that come in through Behind the Signs. It's part of the sign up process. And we got one a couple days ago. And I think I might have even sent it over to an email just to think about ahead of time, but I'm going to give a shout out to Ackley Graphics. Hopefully I'm not putting them on the spot, but they asked a really good question about AI, and I'm sure designers are thinking about AI and how it impacts their work. And he wrote, how do we keep, and I loved this question actually, how do we keep ourselves as ourselves in the ever increasing AI dominated and impersonal world? There is and should always be the need for human touch. And I think about AI and I'm dabbling in using some of the tools for different things that I do. But what are your thoughts about the impact of AI on sign design and their thoughts on it?
So I started out before computers, and then when the computer came out, I thought this evil digital thing was going to take my job. And I walked away from graphic design and signage and all that because I wasn't going to sit in front of this tan box. When I learned all these skills with my hands and cutting and all this cool stuff, all this analog stuff. And years later, I had to go back to it because, my body worn out from the construction part. And on top of that, I just wanted to be creative again. And I wanted to learn and I had a computer and I was dabbling with it, but, I learned how to use the computer and realized I'm still using my hands. I'm still using my brain. I'm still using this. I'm still using that. When it comes to AI, I still don't think it's there yet, but it will be. But I will say one thing, like 2 years ago, I went and used an AI thing, say, hey, design this sign. And I have a Shutterstock account, and I did it on Shutterstock, and it cranked out a decent sign design. Now, it has nothing to do with architecture. It has nothing to do with the look of the building or the area or whatever like that. But it gave an idea about what to do. And I'm like crap, If you're generating ideas that you cannot get from the internet, I could see a use for it. I think that if you're relying on AI to do all your design, you're in the wrong business. Then it may look good and you may get the accolades. There's a reason why designers do what they do is they like being told that the design is great. That really is. There's that's the payment that most of us like to get. You don't get that with AI. Oh, I just typed in a bunch of words and they were good words, and I got this awesome design, but that's not design. That's just, it's not. But we also need to not be afraid of it. I think that it's here and we got to learn how to use it and incorporate it in any way that we feel that we want to. There's a podcast that I was listening to that made sense to me, was the Angry Designer podcast. And he was talking about AI and that, it's here. We have to, whether you embrace it or not is one thing, but that we have to just deal with it. It's just like my fear of the computer. I have fears about AI, but at the same time, I've been doing it long enough to know that I don't need it. And if I do need it, it's just to come up with ideas that I couldn't think. I got 1,200 books that I can open up and get ideas from. And then I got Pinterest and I got all these different, Google images and stuff like that to get ideas from. And AI is just another version of that for me. And what it can't do though is it still can't do section drawings, which I wish it would.
I wish it would too.
Right.
What else it can't do is it can't count how many doors need ADA signs, and I wish it would though. Man, I've tried.
And it can't go out and meet a client in their space and talk about their space and the experience that people, have when they walk into their space. So not yet anyway, till the rise of the robots, then maybe we'll be in trouble.
But there are people that, and I know there was a thread on Behind the Signs that meant that this guy all his work was AI driven. And I wasn't, burning him, but, that he was like, oh, I'm a design firm. I go, no, you're not. You make mugs, someone has to do it, but, it's don't start thinking of yourself as this idea that you're using your all the juice in your brain to come up with a mug design. It's when we're talking about design, we're talking about thoughtful process work that is going to benefit the client to the point where they're going to be making money on it, that there's an emotion attached to it, that clients will see that and want to be drawn to it. AI just doesn't have that ability yet. And it might be lucky that it could pop one out once in a while, but everybody is looking at the shiny. Like I remember the first time I saw a color computer monitor, and I put rainbows on everything, and just about, green like that, because I could do it. I could print it, and stuff like that. But that wears out. It wears out, and it will at some point wear out because it unless it gets it. But it's getting better and better though, so we can't ignore it. So I don't.
No, I think it will be a useful tool, but you have to have the skill set to know how to use the tool,
and you have to have taste. And you have to have learned the visual language of design to understand, oh, that's good or that's bad, So again, you still need to learn about color, proportion, all these little things that design is. And there's a cool little video of oh man, I forgot the designer now, but he's talking about the synthesis of design and of what it is involved with. So it's good you can type in your AI thing all you want, but if it doesn't have those things, then you can mess with it. You can fuss with it. You can use it as inspiration to do something yourself, but you have to practice it. You have to learn it, and you always keep to the process. And that's the main key thing, is always process. A banner is treated the same way to me as a apartment complex. It's just that it's way faster. Yeah.
Great words of advice for anyone in the industry. But
all this stuff in this conversation means, you're going to have more loyal clients. You're going to make your sign shop, it's going to separate you from the herd. You can either go really low and really cheap and do something super simple online where people can upload their own little mess and, press a button and order a banner. That's fine. You do a ton of it and you'll make some money. But if you're willing to invest in elevating your design and being a premier design build fabric, sign shop, then you'll really do well. It's the people in the middle that don't have a vision for design and they just are cranking out whatever box letters, and not that you can't keep your doors open doing
again,
that. But
I think all types are needed.
But the opportunity and I know you guys have that problem in Texas, and we have the same problem in California. We have the pretty restrictive contractors licenses and stuff like that. Once you get into the electrical, you're wide open to do all these kinds of things, and to just be stuck with doing boxes and letters and stuff like that is just a waste. I get that cranking it out by the pound or but then you're a copy shop. You're copying stuff. You're not really you're selling signage, but you're not selling design. And that's okay. Someone has to do that. But then but then they don't get to say their opinion about it.
Well, this is definitely something we are all passionate about and could talk about all day, but we've taken up so much of your time. So before we leave today, Rick, I just want to ask you, where can people find you and your work? Where can they follow you, or where can they hire you?
I'm currently pretty busy, but I'm looking for new clients, in the next few months. And I'm at Kingpin Creative .portfolio.com. That's my main site, and then I can be found on Instagram and LinkedIn. And with some more work there, and I'm planning on we're always, working on our portfolio. But I'll be adding some more signage as it goes along. But I'm also very, very busy online, especially on behind the signs, answering questions and stuff like that. And then, if you have a question or anything, just ask it there, and then we can all learn from it if I can answer it.
And we'll, of course, drop all your links below in the description of the video. Yeah, show notes. So be sure to check out Rick. And we so appreciate your time today, Rick. Thank you so much.
Today, you are my favorite sign designer.
I won't tell Russell.
You'll have to tell Russell.
Right there.